What is going on, everyone, and welcome to a special video. So I know a lot of other YouTubers and streamers do this, like a top 10 beginners tips and tricks thingy. So I wanted to give my take on what I think would be important for beginners to start learning and going over. So this is coming from someone who's been playing the game since beta, and the game has actually come a long way throughout the years. A lot of major changes, so I guess if you guys enjoy it, we can always do an updated one every year. But yeah, these are just some of my takes on things that would be good for you guys. And so in no particular order, I have a little list of things I wanted to talk about. But I guess the first thing you do when you start this game is you're going to want to mess with the settings. And usually this is like not an important thing, but I wanted to go over it mostly because when you start the game, everything is on by default for some reason. And it's just like there's a lot of nonsense you're going to see. And it's just like you don't need it until you might actually think you need it. So first of all, make sure to look at all of these. There's actually a lot of settings in this game. So aside from that, even if you're just playing casually, there's stuff that you might want to look at in the alerts and general and interface. So always rebind as usual. But some things, like all of these things, turn it off until you think you want to turn it on in case you need it. So like as a beginner, guess what you don't need to learn how to do? All your wars and stuff, missions, all this stuff, turn it off. And all of these are on by default. It just clutters your screen with a lot of nonsense that you don't really need, even like from day one to all the way until you like quit the game. You don't need any of these. So it's just less things on your screen, the better. And make sure to look at all of these and just tweak it to your settings. And maybe one day I'll go into a more in-depth thing of all my settings. That way you could look at it and just go over it. So anyway, but yeah, make sure to actually tweak everything, especially some of these if you plan on like going in depth for a lot of stuff. So that's number one. Tweak your settings. By default, everything will be on. You're going to see flashes and pop-ups everywhere. You're going to be so confused. Just turn it off and then just look at it later. Number two, beginner. This one is very important. I would start a season character. There's basically seasons, I think 4 seasons a year. And always start one. Because if you are on a season character, which is currently going on right now, for me, for example, you can see your character's season right here because there's a little yellow tag. And playing through the season character on your first time is going to help you get gear faster than if you were to play a normal character. Just kind of like every other game that has a season, it expedites your growth and helps you understand the game. So when you make a season character, you're going to want to play through the story. Just keep in mind, this is my opinion on if this is your first character. Now, you may be wondering, what character do I play? So on the website, there's something that tells you basically like what every character does. You can obviously watch YouTubers, streamers, read guides, and find a character that works for you. Now, I've always had a thing. If you ask me a question, whether it's in the comments, Discord, any social media, I'm happy to help people find a class that might work for them. I've also played a lot of MMOs as well, so it might help you. So basically, this is how it would work. If you ask me what character you want to play, tell me a little bit about your playstyle. Like, do you like playing defensive, offensive, warriors, like, I don't know, big DPS, or support, tanky, and it's generally your playstyle, and I could help you narrow it down from there. But with season characters, unlike with your main gear, you're going to have these things called Tuvala gear. And it's easier to enhance, and by enhance, it's like upgrade gear stats. And what you would do is basically just get you more or less caught up to be able to do stuff once the season ends, and you're in your, like, I don't know, after the season ends, you get to keep the gear, and you just can do whatever you want after that one. So it is easier to get gear on your season character. You're going to have things called Tuvala gear. Well, first you start with Naru and then go to Tuvala, and by the time you end the season, in theory, you should be full or pretty close to full Pen Tuvala stuff, and then you can grind more spots and then upgrade from there. That's when you get into the real game. So basically, play a season character, pick a character you like, and if you have no idea what you like, feel free to ask. I'm happy to help narrow the choices down, but ultimately you could play... they give you enough character slots to play one of everything if you wanted to, so you could just test them all. They have a trial character section when you're like creating, so that means it's like they give you some trial gear that doesn't work anywhere except for like PvP. So if you want to just play around with skills and stuff, you can do that. Pretty good. So season character is very important for a new player. They give you a lot of rewards, and they'll just help get you caught up more or less into the non-season stuff after. So if you've ever played MMOs or anything, you're pretty used to this, but it is important. Next, we have, what do you do after the season ends? Well, I mean, it's not like you can't do this while in season. It's just some items are restricted if you're a season character. So after it ends, what do you do from there? This is an open world game. You could do whatever you want. That's usually what I tell people. But there are two routes you can go. One is like, you know, your traditional MMO. Do you enjoy grinding all day and running in circles, getting money? Or do you enjoy like life skilling? And what else do you want to do? So ultimately, you can do everything. Grinding is more for like, do you like running around in circles, killing enemies, getting your combat gear up, and then ultimately, I guess the point of that is PvP, or do you just like getting more gear so you can grind higher end spots and all that stuff? Or do you like life skilling, which is all of these things right here? And life skilling is, I would say, the same, but also different from other games, because like, okay, fishing is literally in every game you've probably played. Even some games that you don't think would have fishing has fishing for some reason. So basically, life skills are another way to make money, but if you don't like grinding in circles, you could do things that are connected. So like, for example, gathering, you chop trees, or animals, and you do alchemy. It's all connected one way or another, because let's say you get materials from gathering and then you cook them or use it for alchemy, or you process it, and then it all connects. If you've played like RuneScape, that's probably the closest comparison I can give you for that. And then there's also ocean content, which is not as common in other MMOs. So there's a lot to discover in the world of VDO, and you can figure out what you enjoy doing. So ultimately, I would say try everything at least once, but then just know once you figure like something you enjoy doing, just keep doing that, try everything else. But there are two branches of the grinding route and then life skiller route. They do have separate gear in a way, so ultimately, if you want to get a lot of the high-end gear, there is like grinding gear for PvE, PvP, and then there's life skill gear. So it ultimately is a long-term progress, and you can get everything, but it's just try to pick a route and focus on that one. And then once you get up into the higher like levels and mastery for everything, you start making more money, and then that allows you to expand or branch off into more things. So it's probably good to try to find something you like early and then do that for a little bit. Then once you think you saved up enough silver, which is the currency in this game, that's when you move on to something else. All right, next, if you are going the grinding route, you're probably wondering, how do I get gear? There are a few different ways of like progressing your character, and there's this new thing that they added. I don't think it was like last year, maybe. They have a guaranteed pen accessory and armor and weapon quest line. So the way it works is you see a progression pass, guaranteed pen. Basically, this is like you get rewards for doing this, which is actually another thing. The progression pass, and I'll tie it into how you can upgrade your gear. So this is something new that they added, I think, earlier this year or somewhat last year. You get rewarded for just doing things in this game. Now, there's this guaranteed pen progression line, and what you do is you do a few quests, you collect materials, and you can guarantee an upgrade. And what do I mean by upgrade? If you look in your... Well, how do I say this for beginners? Every game has a market system. This game is called the Central Market. And then you may be like confused. What do all these tabs mean? We actually have a series of window shopping that you can actually watch too. I should leave a link in the description to just a lot of stuff that you could watch on your own time. So let's take a random weapon, for example. Let's go with something beginner, more or less beginner friendly. It doesn't matter what the weapon is, just pick something. Now, you see how these have numbers like plus whatever, and then pry, duo, tri, tet, pen? That means you upgraded your weapon, and it has more stats than previously. With the guaranteed pen, you can get the highest tier right now, and I think it is a little bit cheaper the first few times, and then it gets progressively more expensive. So anyway, if you want like the high-end gear, there's a quest line for that. I actually have never done it because when it came out, I was already at that point, so I had no need for it. But from what I've heard and just looked at the materials, it is cheaper the first few times, so you want to make sure to look into it at some point. So yeah, we talked about the progression pass and the Central Market, which kind of ties in together. You guys may be wondering, how do I progress through the game, and like how should I upgrade my gear? And the best way to do that is, let's just pick another character because I'm like busy life skilling right now. It wouldn't be a good representation. Let's do a simple one and look at it from a season point of view. So make sure you could look at this on the Central Market as well. You can't buy Tuvala, but like main boss gear stuff. And each item piece, like your glove, chest piece, helmet, shoes, weapons, I would always say you want to work on your weapons first, because the higher your AP, or your attack power, I guess it's called, the higher it allows you to grind or do new things and explore new areas. So with more like AP, you get to go into newer spots and try new things out. So I would always say go with weapons first. Now you may be wondering which weapons first. So initially you would start off with your main hand, which is like the one on the left. And then eventually you'll go into your offhand, and then if you eventually, after 56 of doing the story and stuff, you'll unlock an awakening. So once you hit level 56, you get to do some quest lines that allow you to go the awakening or succession route. I'll just show you this right here. So succession and awakening. And basically the difference is awakening gives you different skills that you don't have on succession. So you get to play with a new kit and your main kit. So that's cool. Succession, on the other hand, it only allows you to use your main skills. However, those main skills you do a lot more damage. So basically, if you don't want like 50 different skills, you could just use your main like few, and then they just hit a lot harder. So believe it or not, some succession for some classes is really good, some is not. So it really just depends on your class you want to play. Ultimately, you can play them both. It doesn't really matter. Just play what you think is fun, in my opinion. So going back to like how do you gear up after you get the weapons is you usually the way I would say it, let's say you're a season and you're transitioning into full-on like boss gear, you're out of season, you kind of have an idea of what you're doing, you've been playing the game for, I don't know, 4 months, however long a season is. You may be wondering, how do I upgrade from there with the pen, gear, and weapons thing, right? So this is going to sound like a silly answer, but really just get the items that give you the most stats for the least amount of silver. And by this point, you should know what all that is. And you may be wondering, okay, so what do I look for? You see people talking about like high-end things. It's called like evasion and damage reduction. That's really high-end stuff. Ultimately, once you first start, you really just want to go for cheapest upgrades for the least amount of silver. And then once you hit the end game point where you think you should be very specifically tweaking your character, that's when you look into it. But until then, my suggestion is always going to be the damage reduction route, which would be oh god, I think they're like all separated. So anyway, DR route would be Beg's Glove, Uragons. I don't these are really late game stuff. Let me just show you on the market. I know this is kind of going off into like the past beginner point, but I'll just give you a tip. If it sinks in your memory for a while, cool. If not, just you'll figure it out by that point. So this one, the armor, there's gonna be 2 routes you go: Red Nose and Dim Tree. Nowadays, Red Nose until you can upgrade to Fallen God. I'm just gonna go through this really quickly. If you want in-depth things, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to give you a more detailed explanation. But this is a beginner tips video, so I'm not gonna go into like a full detailed one. Feel free to ask though. And then helmet, you have Griffin and Gaia. Griffin, the way to go until you can go up to the Libresca stuff. All right, with that said, other beginner tips that I can give you. Make sure to, once you unlock the entire map and everything, there's no more like fog and stuff like this. You want to start setting all your characters to be like in a central zone and make some base or like some town like your home area. Now, for example, a lot of my characters are parked in Velia because Velia, I use it for like enhancing, and just this is my central hub for like enhancing, and I just go there. Same with Heidel. Heidel is used for a lot of crafting and processing, so that's where my materials are spread out. I guess like in a more detailed video one day I could do like how do I organize all my storages, but the tip I would give you is park your characters in a central area or a central town that you think you would be at the most. And the reasoning why is you want to put the important storage items that you have there so you don't lose it. They might be used for other things in the future. So, as you guys know, when I said before, where you branch off into the life skill route, everywhere in town you could do some sort of life skilling. Do you want to have a central town for cooking and alchemy? Or do you just gather in a certain area? Or do you grind in a certain area? You want to make that town mostly where you put all your materials. So, for example, like Glish is a place where I just store a lot of materials. This is storage, whereas this one is like crafting a lot. So that's why I have materials there. But you have craft materials pretty much everywhere. And then this one is just for essential goods and enhancing and upgrading gear. So that's a lot of information that you probably don't really need to know, and you'll figure it out just over time by playing. It's like, oh, this place I do this and whatnot. So another thing that I could give you, another tip, is make sure to use your scrolls that they give you. So eventually you're gonna do a quest line that unlocks the family inventory. So by default you just have inventory and Pearl. Pearl is basically cash shop items, and every game has that. We're all used to it. Family, eventually, once you unlock it, this storage is open to all your characters, and whereas your inventory and Pearl is character specific. So tips I can give you is put your scrolls in your family inventory. I actually don't think I've ever bought any family inventory or weight. So like if you go to, whether you go to life skill route or to grind route, put your scrolls in your family inventory. Because generally, like if you want to grind, you put your loot scrolls and all the stuff there, so that way it's just there for all your characters. And then all your grind buffs and everything, it just helps it so you don't lose it. And then potions, and these are all life skill buffs, so life skillers, same thing with grinding. You have just essential family inventory. So this is a very important quest line to unlock later on. That way you just put all your things there, and it's in a central area. The same with your central market. Now, this one is a little bit different. They do give maids out from the cash app, or you could just buy it. They give it out for events too, so if you are completely free to play and don't want to spend money, this will be a little bit less relevant, but it's still good because you will get some for free anyway. So, there's this thing called a maid or butler, and these allow you to pull items from your central market or your storage while you're not in town. And the reason why it's important is because it allows you to keep doing what you're doing, whether it's life skilling or grinding, without actually having to go back to town. So the way it works is once you have them, they're on a cooldown, and you just open it and then see your storage. So you have to be in the region that you are in. So like, let's say over here, for example, this would probably still be counted as the Heidel area or Serendia. So just keep in mind, look at these little flag thingies, and they tell you what region you're in, and that means you can access the storage in there. Now, the other thing you could do is the central market. Now, you have a central market inventory, and this is where it is. You could also put items or certain items that are sellable to have a price tag on it in there, and then you could just pull those out of the central market as you want to as well. So that's basically a family inventory, but more like more pay to win in a way. I would just recommend using family inventory. It's free, more or less. So anyway, what else do we have on our list? A next tip I can give is workers and nodes. Now, this is very confusing because a lot of people will look at it and be like, oh my god, what do I do? So the way it works is over here, you have a thing called contribution points. Now, you want this number to be like contribution number out of number. Number on the left means the available to use contribution points, and your right is your total number, right? So ultimately, you want your points used at all times. The number on the left to be as low as possible, and the number on the right, your pool, is higher. So basically, workers and nodes, what do? If you connect your knowledge or worker empire, so you connect a node, so you start from a town, just pick a random town, right? So use Heidel, for example. And then if you want a node, you can connect one, and it has to like connect. This is what all these lines mean, your connection. It works mostly for trade routes, and trading is a life skill. It gives you more money for that, but trading is kind of a dead life skill right now, but I'm going to be honest. But having workers is very important because they bring passive like items to your storage over time. And what all that is, it would take me a really long time to explain what is good. But as a new player, I guess what I could tell you is timbers, logs, and just like crafting materials are always something you should collect and save. And whether you use it or not is okay, because if you don't use it, you can sell it on the market. So anyway, the way it works is pick a node that has a little like route, or you see how it's yellow right here? That means it's connected. If there's no yellow, that means it's not connected. So for example, let's pick this node, the plantation. I have 2 workers on here, and they're bringing wheat and flax to my storage. So that way, over time, when I'm playing or just AFK, they'll bring flax and wheat to my storage just over time. basically free money as long as you're logged in. So you want to connect workers on as much as possible. It does cost a little bit of energy. So the more you play the game, the more you do stuff, the more your energy and contribution total pool would be. And you'll just figure it out over time what you think is good and what you don't think is good. I have a very separate video. It was a kind of in-depth one for 2022, just going over all my nodes. So just the TLDR, I'll leave it somewhere maybe in the description, or you can just find it on the channel. I have a playlist for all my 2022 events and guides. I'll just leave the link to the playlist. You can watch everything from there. So another thing you may be wondering, or what else do I do? It's important to set goals for yourself. Whether you enjoy grinding, or you enjoy life skilling, or you enjoy just sailing in the ocean, there's always something to do for new players. And the way you avoid burnout, I guess this is a goal for literally every game you play, is set a goal. Because if you're just doing something and you don't know why you're doing it, you're probably going to get bored and just quit the game. So things that I've always worked on was like, hey, do I want to upgrade a weapon today, or just save for a month and then try to get an upgrade for a weapon? And the answer to that is whether you just like buying stuff off the market, saving, enhancing it yourself. The ultimate goal is like make plans and have an end game objective, and that way once you reach the objective you can start saving for another one. Even for me, I still have goals in this game, and obviously the further you progress, the longer it takes to reach those goals. But ultimately, have something in mind you want to do, and then you won't burn out and you'll know what you want to do. So anyway, what else do we talk about? We talked about having a hometown. We talked about the central market a little bit. So I'm going to have to just run through this as fast as possible, because this would literally take me hours to talk about. If you are going to zero RNG route and you just like doing whatever you're doing, saving up silver, and ultimately you can just buy whatever you want. Some items take longer than the others. You could just buy it off the market. We talked about gear upgrades and get whatever the biggest gains you can for the least amount of silver. We talked about setting goals, your worker node empire, the progression pass at the very top. Make sure to look at this because this does give you some goodies for just completing them. We talked about the family inventory and how your XP scrolls and all your life scrolls should go there. That way there's just a central area of where you should put them all, your potions and whatnot. We talked about how to gear up with pen gear and the questing so you can do it guaranteed. We talked about your settings because that is very important. We talked about the life and grinding routes, and we talked about the season character. So hopefully those are some tips that I can give you. There's probably more, but those are more advanced details. So I guess I could make some like advanced guides, like how do I do this, or like, I don't know. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, join the Discord and whatnot. I'm very happy to help beginner players or even veteran players try to help optimize, and I just want to help people who enjoy the game become better at it. So yeah, so like as we were doing right now, I don't even know, I was just processing something in the background while we were talking. So anyway, yeah, we had some cool tips to talk about, and hopefully you guys are learning something. And yeah, there's just some of my beginner tips. I was going to make a tip about what you should get in the cash shop, but that one's kind of controversial in the way of like, hey, if you're free to play, you don't get anything. But ultimately, there are some things that I would recommend if you plan on spending any money in this game. Some of the essentials, these are something you probably use for a very long time. And yeah, so anyway, I might save that for a separate video. Hopefully you enjoyed these 10 beginner tips that I had. I know we went into a little tangent on the whole upgrade thingy, but I'll save a lot of that for future stuff. But those are my 10 tips. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Drop a quick like if you enjoyed it. Feel free to chime in and let everyone know what you think as well. And I will see you guys later. Have a fantastic day.